Welcome to FCNYC. My name is Ben Chan and I'm here with Dominic and Mauro. So it is time to talk about mixed martial arts. We're going to start by recapping last week's UFC 4 on UFC on Fox 4 card. One of the best cards that's ever been on Fox. Unfortunately, it's during the Olympics.
Yeah, this is I was a little surprised myself to find out that they have Olympics in the summer and the winter. This was new to me.
Who knew?
Yeah, it does answer the question about the hockey during the summer though. But so counter-programmed by the Olympics, the UFC on Fox 4 ended up with like 2.5 million viewers, which is high for a UFC, but kind of low for sports on Fox on a Saturday night.
So everybody that wasn't watching women's gymnastics was watching UFC, I guess.
Something for everybody.
Yes.
Like women cavorting around or, men rolling around.
Well, so let's talk about what people missed then. Let's start with Lauzon versus Varner.
Yeah, so this fight of the night, submission of the night, Joe Lauzon ends up with all sorts of awards. He's won like $450,000 in bonus award money over his career. So the guy puts on fun fights, and this was definitely one of them. Jamie Varner coming off of probably the biggest win of his UFC career against Edson Barboza. He was a really big underdog. Barboza's a huge, very highly touted striker, really great prospect in the lightweight division. Varner, blew him out of the water, and he threatened to do the same thing to Lauzon. I mean, Lauzon hung in there during the first 2 rounds. Lauzon gave, as good as he got, but not as much as he got. I mean, Varner was outstriking Lauzon throughout this fight like 2-1. It was a pretty, and again, Lauzon got some shots in. He definitely got some shots in, just not as many shots. And none of that matters though, because Lauzon finished the fight. I think Varner broke his hands punching Lauzon in the 3rd round. Varner shoots for the takedown, gets the takedown. I mean, Varner ended up in Lauzon's half guard. Not a bad position, but Lauzon gets this crazy sweep, ends up locking in the triangle. I thought it was a little loose at first, but Varner, I don't know if he was a little disheartened from breaking his hand, or he's just exhausted from punching Lauzon in the face so many times, but Varner didn't struggle out as well as I thought he could have, and he's definitely been choked out a few times before, and Lauzon, secures a come from behind submission. You gotta love it.
Yeah. Due to the result, is there any possibility of them rematching?
I could see that. I mean, Varner loves to make excuses when he gets choked out. I mean, he had a fight against Benson Henderson where he apologized for losing. He apologized to the crowd afterwards, saying, I came to fight guys, but my opponent, he came to grapple. So, Varner, he was a little bit classier this time, but you never know. It was a really great fight. Lauzon, he's definitely trying to move back up the ladder. He had that little setback against, he had a couple of setbacks moving up the ladder, but I think, if Lauzon comes back down the ladder, maybe he loses a championship fight if he even gets that far. Maybe we see a rematch against these 2 guys, and maybe it won't be programmed against the Olympics.
And then in the next fight, we had Lyoto Machida knocking out the once highly touted prospect Ryan Bader.
Yeah. I mean, last January, Ryan Bader and John Jones were, people that liked to debate who was the better prospect. I mean, who was going to be champion first. You thought both of these guys were going to rule the division, and Bader's, how the mighty have fallen. I mean, losses to Tito Ortiz and trying to pull guard on John Jones kind of answered the question of who was the better prospect. And Bader, he just looked outclassed. I mean, he never got close enough to Lyoto Machida to make it to try for a takedown. He didn't use his striking very well to set up the takedowns. I think he landed something like 7 strikes in the entire fight. And that's not significant strikes, that's just strikes. So, Lyoto Machida, what can you say? The guy is a masterful striker. He used his footwork to control the distance. He used his jab to frustrate Bader. He saw everything before Bader even thought to throw it. I mean, it was just really good performance by a striker against a wrestler who doesn't strike very well. And Bader got frustrated in the 2nd round. He rushes in with his Superman punch and leads with his face. Interesting decision, and Machida just hits him right on the button. Beautiful shot. They're going to be replaying that one. That's definitely like tops on the highlight list for Lyoto Machida. And so yeah, Ryan Bader's now 2-3 in his last 5, something like that.
And with the win, Machida possibly moves on to maybe lose again to John Jones.
Yeah, I mean this fight and the other light heavyweight fight we're going to talk about in a second. Whoever won those 2 fights in the most impressive fashion was not promised, but was given I'll go with promised another light heavyweight shot. And what's funny is that all 4 of the guys who were fighting for this shot have already been beaten badly by Jon Jones. And Lyoto Machida, lasted 2 rounds, which is, more than some of the other guys did. But so yeah, Lyoto Machida, he fights the winner of Jon Jones and Dan Henderson after UFC 151, something like that. So yeah, good luck, Machida.
Right, and then after the Machida's knockout of Bader, we had Shogun Rua fighting Brandon Vera in a fight that you initially thought was going to be a rematch.
Yeah,
not a rematch, but just a mismatch.
A mismatch, yeah. No, I thought Brandon Vera, Vera, at one point there was talk of him ruling like 2 divisions at the same time and really just cleaning out the light heavyweight division and the heavyweight division. That's clearly never going to happen. Vera has some good skills. He's a good striker. He's a good grappler. He just has not figured out how to put it together. He just really makes stupid decisions in the ring, and he didn't really get blown out of the water by Shogun like I thought he would. He really looked more impressive in defeat than Shogun looked in victory. Everyone thought that this was an easy fight for Shogun, and Shogun, he went through a war. Shogun got pummeled pretty badly in this fight, and this is not the first time. His fight against Dan Henderson, his fight against Jon Jones, his fight against Lyoto Machida. Shogun's been in some wars. He's been in. He's put his body through the ringer. He's going to be 31 in the fall. That's not terribly old for combat sports, but Shogun is an old 31. He gassed after the second round, and people are sitting here talking about how Shogun looked terrible in victory. It's not really the best result for Shogun. He's always game. He's got a ton of heart. He doesn't give up. He's got a great chin, but you wonder how much longer that's really going to last. So he gets the win, but I don't think he's fighting Jon Jones anytime soon. We really haven't seen a huge improvement over the Shogun that got destroyed by Jon Jones. So, I think this raises Brandon Vera's stock more than it raises Shogun's stock.
Okay, and then this weekend on pay-per-view,
yes.
Just in case you're not interested in the Olympics, we have UFC 150.
The UFC will be shocked and horrified to find out there are 2 weeks of the Olympics. That's just terrible.
And the main card kicks off with Yushin Thunder Okami versus Buddy Roberts.
Yeah, so let's start with the guy with the cool nickname,
Okay.
Thunder Okami. He's coming off of the first back-to-back defeats of his career. He got embarrassed by Anderson Silva. After waiting 5 years for a title shot, he just gets destroyed by the champion. Wasn't even close. And then he gets a tune-up match against a guy coming down from light heavyweight, a guy who didn't really look all that impressive at light heavyweight, and Tim Boach. And he's the victim of one of the most impressive Rocky-esque comebacks I've ever seen in mixed martial arts. So Yushin Okami's at a low point in his career right now. First 2 defeats, the worst upset. It's not a good place for Okami.
So the cure is to let him fight a guy named Buddy.
Yeah, he's fighting a guy named Buddy Roberts. It's the most generic name I could imagine. Jeff Jefferson or something might be worse, but he's fighting next weekend. So Buddy Roberts, I don't know, he fought on a UFC undercard at one point. He's got 5 submission victories by rear naked choke, so that's kind of impressive. Okami's a fantastic wrestler. I don't think he's going to get caught in a rear naked choke. Okami's actually got pretty good striking. I assume he can outstrike Buddy Roberts, but good luck, buddy.
Okay. And then next up we have Jake Shields moving up to 185 to fight middleweight gatekeeper Ed Herman.
Yeah, so Jake Shields, when he was in Strikeforce, he was the 185 champion over there, and he only dropped down to 170 because the UFC was gagging for competitors for GSP. And so Shields now, having successfully knocked out GSP's eyeball, but not much else, Jake Shields moves up to 185. There's much less of a logjam. By the time Jake Shields gets his way up to a title shot, maybe Anderson Silva's retired by then. You never know. So Shields is getting a pretty easy shot against Ed Herman. Herman's, I don't want to say folded against tough competition, but Ed Herman beats guys who don't belong at 185 in the UFC, and he loses to guys, not even guys who just go on to title shots. He's not even like a championship gatekeeper. He's just sort of like a mid-tier gatekeeper. And so it's kind of a tune-up fight for Jake Shields to see can he really wrestle at 185 in the UFC. The UFC 185 pounders, are they really, are they much bigger than the Strikeforce guys? Probably. Are they better than the Strikeforce guys? Probably. So we'll see where Jake Shields belongs in 185 with this fight.
Okay, and then next up we have the submission skills of Donald Cerrone versus the I don't know, stand-up skills of Melvin Guillard?
Yeah, the very impressive shoulder muscles and punching ability of Melvin Guillard. You know, Guillard, he's 29 years old. This is going to be his 44th fight. I mean, the guy has been in a lot of fights. You know, he's got crazy knockout power. He is fast. He's really accurate with his punches. And he needs to stay off the ground against Donald Cerrone. I mean, Cerrone's got 13 submission victories. Cerrone is a great grappler. Cerrone likes to, you know, stand and kickbox too. He's very comfortable on his feet, striking against most people in the lightweight division. But I mean, getting caught by Melvin Guillard means you wake up, you know, a week later in a hospital. I mean, he's really not messing around on the feet. Now, Guillard's got a pretty crappy chin, actually. For a guy who hits so hard, I mean, Guillard gets, you know, rocked by backpedaling jabs. I mean, Joe Lozon did exactly that and managed to submit Guillard when he stumbled onto the ground. So, you know, Guillard, he can throw a punch, but he cannot take a punch. So I think Cerrone could actually win this fight on the feet, but I see no reason for him to try. I mean, Cerrone clearly outclasses Guillard on the ground, and I think that's really where Cerrone's got to take this fight. And if he does, I think it's an easy victory for Cerrone. I think he could finish this fight in the first round if he gets it to the ground.
And then in the main event, we have a rematch between Benson Henderson and Frankie Edgar.
Yeah, the first fight was a barn burner. I mean, all the Frankie Edgar's fights the last few years have been just fantastic. You know, the fights against BJ Penn, just a great boxing clinic. The second fight, you know, there's some grappling. And, you know, you gotta, I mean, Frankie Edgar II, Frankie Edgar, Gray Maynard 2 and 3, some of the best fights I've ever seen in mixed martial arts. So,
so the rematch isn't an unfamiliar place for Frankie Edgar to be.
No. I mean, Frankie 2 times is at it again, folks. Frankie, you know, the first fight, really close. Some folks thought Frankie Edgar still won the fight. I scored it for Benson Henderson. I thought it was a really close decision. It could have gone, you know, it could have gone either way, but I think most folks would agree that Benson Henderson won that fight. Frankie Edgar looked all kinds of messed up at the end of the fight, too. I mean, he got his face shattered by that up kick, so that one up kick in, I think, the third round. So, you know, the first fight was close enough, the fans wanted it, and it's going to be a great fight. I mean, these guys, you know, Benson Henderson, 18-2, can't be submitted. I mean, the guy gets out of more submissions. I can't even imagine. His neck is made of, you know, something other than blood vessels, because you can just squeeze on that thing all day and nothing happens. And Frankie Edgar, you know, he can't be knocked out. I mean, you know, Gray Maynard threw everything but the kitchen sink at his face, hit his face. I mean, Frankie Edgar, whatever they put in the water in Jersey, Frankie Edgar has lots of it, because he walks through punches that should kill normal people. Normal human beings would die from these punches, and Frankie Edgar, you know, gets a bloody nose and then comes back and knocks the guy out. So, Frankie Edgar probably not going to submit Benson Henderson. Benson Henderson probably not going to knock out Frankie Edgar. I don't know. Frankie comes back the second time stronger than ever. I mean, the second fight against BJ Penn, Edgar looked fantastic, clearly won the fight, didn't even give up a round. Second fight against Gray Maynard, you know, Frankie Edgar knocks him out in stunning, you know, I don't want to say Rocky fashion again, because I've said that already, but, you know, stunning, crazy cinematic fashion, crazy knockout in the fourth round. I got to think Frankie 2 times does it again. I mean, I think that, you know, I think he can take the title back from Benson Henderson. And best part is, if he stops Henderson, there's no controversy there. So, you know, Frankie would have to, he could skip that third fight immediately and get back to clearing out the lightweight division. So, be a great fight one way or the other.
Okay, so thank you, Dominic. Thank you for watching, and UFC 150 on pay-per-view this Saturday. Tune in, and we'll see you next week.